Hello, and welcome to the next installment of Preacher Life. Well, last week we looked at the first part of the sixth day of creation and the creation of land animals. Well, this week we'll get to the end of the sixth day, creation of mankind. So we're going to start with Genesis 1, starting at verse 26, and I'm going to intersperse a few verses in here, but here we go. Genesis 1, verse 26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food. Also, to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food." And it was so. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So we see here in the last few verses of Genesis 1 that we are the creation of mankind, of Adam and Eve. Now, Genesis 2 is a little bit more explanation of this day of creation, or a little bit more detail. So let's go to it a minute, and we'll talk a little bit more about the creation of Adam and Eve before I comment on the verses that we've just read as well. All right, Genesis 2 verse 7 is where we read of the creation of the man. "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." Then we'll move on to Genesis 2 verse 18. "And the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air, and brought them to Adam, to see what he would call them. And whenever Adam called each living creature, that was its name. So Adam gave names to all cattle, to the birds of the air, and every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper comparable to him." So, in other words, Adam did not see the monkeys and say, "Oh, that's close enough, I'll take one of them." No, there is not another person on the whole face of the earth. It was only Adam. So God created a helper that is comparable to him. So Genesis 2, starting at verse 21. "And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and closed up flesh in its place. Then the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. So, with these verses from Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, we see the creation of mankind as well as the purpose or the directives that we were given. At least part of it. I will go on into more next week, but these verses alone have a lot of depth to them that we could go into. But I'll comment on some of it here, and maybe later on we'll get further into it. But back in Genesis 1, we see that starting at verse 26, where we were earlier, that first of all, the purpose or directive for mankind is that we are made in God's image. There is not any other creature in the earth that has been given this high calling, that all life from the very beginning, at conception, when sperm meets egg, is in the image of God. And we see this if we look at mankind today, that we don't see that gorillas or dolphins set up court systems and that bring justice down on other dolphins or gorillas, or take your pick. It's only mankind that does this. And when we see that mankind was created in God's image, we don't necessarily mean that God always has, say, 2 arms, 2 legs, feet, fingers, and everything else. But that mankind is both soul and body. So that our person, so Joel, is a soul that occupies this body. You know, I don't have control so much over this body because of spinal cord injury, and someone that, say, is missing arms or legs or all 4 of them, they are not lacking of being in God's image because they're missing a limb or all 4. We are still in God's image of body and soul, and having thoughts to understand and to explore the universe God has given us, which again here was given in 26, that we are to have dominion over everything, over all animals and creatures. So they are to be used for our purposes, such as, say, horses that, in olden times especially, that help to, say, plow crops and be able to farm, but also that we are to take care of them. However, we need to remember that it was a choice of mankind versus the animals. Say you have a fire in your house and you have a choice of getting your children out or your pet dog. Well, the kids are first, as they are made in the image of God. Also in the case of, say, someone that is drowning, say a boat overturns or something of that sort, well, you get the people first, and It might be a sad thing if a dog perishes. I can understand that, but still, we want to save people first. But continuing on from Genesis 1:26 of that we are made in God's image. So we saw a little bit ago in Genesis 2 that Adam, or the man, was made from the dust of the earth. He wasn't made from some other pre-existing creature like a monkey or some kind of hominid, but he was made unique from dust, just like we saw all the cattle as well, that they were not evolved from, say, some single cell organism that then slowly gained things over eons of time, but were created from the dust of the earth, just as God specialized them. Again, as we saw last week, cattle and horses, dogs and cats are all made in their particular kinds. Well, mankind is our own as well. We see that a man and wife, they get married and have children. Well, those children are human as well. We might call them little monkeys or something of that sort, or rugrats or anything like that, but they are still human. And we see also that at the very beginning that God gave vegetables, or the every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of the earth, and not meat. Well, meat comes from an animal, such as hamburger comes from a cow, or pork chops come from pigs, or as I hope to have for lunch, I'll have fish fillets, which come from, well, fish, not these. These won't give much food. But before we had sin in the world and Adam and Eve were just created, there was no death and therefore no meat. So as we saw in Genesis 1 verse 31, God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good, or it was perfect. And that described the world at that time. So when we had the end of creation week, we see that all was good, that in a week's time God had created all that there is, and the man and woman, or Adam and Eve as they were named, they were commanded to have kids and to have dominion over everything. And I did not read, but at in Genesis 2, it said the man and woman were naked and they felt no shame. And, that was the perfect state of what it is. But next week, we will look more into the fall of man and how things changed. And after that point, then we'll go back and get some objections to creation and talk further. But I know this has been a brief discussion of creation of mankind, but it's something that we need to remember, that no, the mankind was not created out of something that already existed, but only to the dust. Sorry about that. Speaking about dust made me sneeze. So that is the main point, that We are in God's image and of nothing else. But that is all for now, so thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next week on The Preacher Life. Bye for now.